Dutton, you just talked about your 25% cut to migration.
Yeah.
Now, that's to permanent migration, and
Yes.
it means people who are already here. You initially had a target to cut net migration, which is really the figure that matters, by 100,000 more than Labor. You earlier, can't remember when, announced 30,000 more on students. Are you still committed to that 100,000 deeper cut?
Yes.
And if so,
Yeah,
yes.
so in relation,
So what's our net overseas migration
your question is in relation to the NOM. We can reduce the NOM by 100,000. And
when will that happen?
well, straight away, once we get into government, we can deal with Labor's mess. This is the issue, you see.
So is that going back to 160,000?
Well, it depends on what the NOM figure is at the moment, because if you have a look at the Prime Minister, all sorts of wild projections in relation to NOM, and none of them achieve. They always blow out, and their migration targets always blow out. So from the figure that we achieve, that we bequeathed when we come into government, that the figure that it is when we change government, we can reduce it by 100,000.
Okay,
That's
our
position.
If it stays at 260,000, that means you'll go down to 160,000, which was your initial figure from the budget reply speech.
Correct. And if it goes up under this government, which you would expect it to, I mean, they're talking about 1.8 million people coming in over a 5-year period. Don't forget that is over a 2-year period, 1 million people, which is 70% more than at any 2-year period in our country's history. And you wonder why we've got a housing crisis when they've stopped the supply of housing. They've allowed the CFMEU to run riot through the building sector, which has driven up the cost of constructing a house. I want to make home affordability a reality for Australians again. And we can do that by putting in place our 2-year ban on foreign buyers to stop those foreign buyers from competing against young Australians in buying Australian homes.
There was a big business backlash to that 160,000 number. Are you worried about that?
I'm not worried about that. I've got the first and foremost interest in mind, and that is to get young Australians into housing. I'm not going to tolerate Labor's policy where they're happy that Australians and young Australians can't get into housing. We've got older Australians at the moment who are working longer and harder because they had planned wisely and saved their whole lives to provide for their own retirement. They're pushing out their retirement date now because they think they know their kids need help either with rent or with a house deposit, or to help chip into the repayments that their kids are making each month on their mortgage. Now, that's not something the Prime Minister's talking about, but that's the reality of what Australians are going through, and I don't want that to be the case. I want young Australians to be able to afford housing. Young Australians are putting off having kids at the moment under this government because they can't afford to rent and to save for a deposit at the same time and pay for childcare. So this government has created a real mess. And when the Prime Minister says, well, everything's okay, and vote for him and Adam Bandt, and another 3 years will be better, well, that's what he promised on 97 occasions in relation to bringing the price of power down. It hasn't happened. Yes.
Yeah. Will you be going to visit your father today? And a question for Mr O'Brien, if I may. Can he guarantee that gas exporters won't scale back production to essentially avoid having to pay the export tax or sell to the local market at lower prices?
Well, I've spoken to Dad this morning, and I've got amazing siblings, and my sisters are with Dad at the moment, so I'll just monitor that and see how we go.